Today's episode, we're going to talk about multiple offer situations, which come up quite often. And I want to kind of take it from the perspective of the seller and the buyer side because it's two totally different situations, right? So I'm going to use an example that I just listed a property over the weekend in Roxborough. And I had a feeling we would get multiple offers. So I think back, when I think multiple offers and I think about this situation, I just had this thought last night because I knew I had multiple offers, but I think back to years and years and years ago where it was probably one of the first times I had multiple offers. And it's, you think it's, when you're on the listing side or the seller side, you think it's a good thing, and it honestly is, but there's a nuance to it. There's a way to play that, and there's a couple different things I'll get into, but I think back to, it was a condo, it was a relocation condo on Christian Street in Grad Hospital, 1700 block, 1800 block, I forget. And there were multiple offers. And an agent for Berkshire Hathaway, who I don't really know all that well, I think he ultimately brought the buyer, but I forget the exact details, but he was kind of like putting a lot of pressure on me to get an answer for his buyer, for his listing. And I remember thinking, like, this is so stressful. I feel like I should know how to navigate this a little bit better. And really what happens over the years is you do it enough that you realize, you figure out what to say to who and when to say it and how to say it and how to make it work. But I think, in my world, and not all realtors subscribe to this, but in my world, I like to give all the buyers a shot. So sometimes a buyer comes in, they blow it out of the water, right? It's just too strong, the price is too high, the terms are too good, and you just have to say to everybody else, hey, I'm sorry, but this is the offer. But I try to be as transparent with buyers agents as possible, right? The goal is to get the best terms when you're on the listing side, to get the best possible terms for your seller. So, but I at least try to give everybody a fair shot. And that doesn't mean I give all the information. I give the terms, and everybody's different. Some sellers will say, you know what, you can tell them what price we have. Other people will say, no, don't do that. The example I give of something like that is, if you tell one of the buyer's agents that you have an offer for $500,000, maybe they come in with an offer of $505,000. Where if you didn't say anything at all, maybe they come in at $525 or something like that. So there's a little bit of nuance there as to how you approach it, and every situation is different. But in my world, I at least give everybody a shot. If they didn't get it because they didn't come to the table with their best terms, I'm not gonna say my conscience is clear, but they at least had the opportunity. You never want to be in a situation where you just weren't given a shot, although it does happen sometimes. So I always think back to how I got bullied a little bit. I think he was giving me a time frame by which his offer was going to expire or whatever. Where now, if the same thing would have happened, I would have said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, because we're gonna do what we're gonna do anyway, and you're either in or you're out. A lot of that is market condition based as well, but to fast forward to last night where I'm at Whole Foods, I'm food shopping, I'm in my car, offers are coming in, I'm kind of navigating it the way it was. And actually in this case, the people wanted to bring the offer on Saturday and have an answer Saturday night, and I flat out told her, I said, that's not happening. We went on the market on Friday. I won't be able to get you an answer tonight. I'll get you an answer by Sunday night or Monday morning, but that's just how it's going to happen. So you got to dictate the terms. So that's a little bit on the seller side, right? There's, you kind of go back and forth a little bit, and you're trying to get the best terms. I never like sellers to counter somebody over their asking price. I think that's greedy. If it organically, someone comes in over asking price, that's fine, but I don't like doing that. Some people may disagree with that, but that's just the way I operate. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people are a little more cutthroat than others. On the buyer side, and what I'll do is I'll translate this to the current marketplace as well. On the buyer side, you really kind of have to know your market, know your competition. Unfortunately, as a listing agent, you'd like to be able to answer every question and give every buyer's agent all the information. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. Last night was a case in point. Like, I chatted with one agent who was bringing an offer, and there was only one other offer, so there was two offers. But after I hung up the phone with her at 7 o'clock at night, an offer came in at 10:30 at night. I didn't pick up the phone at 10:30 and tell the other agent that I had an offer. I'm sure she would have appreciated that. Life just happens sometimes in the business, and you can't always make that work. So, but what you want to do is, when you want to get as much information as you can when you're on the buyer side about what you're up against. And then it's up to you in terms of your comfort level, how much you like the house, how aggressive you want to be, right? And that's all market based. Like, I represented a buyer who really wanted this condo, and we waived inspections. We didn't waive our mortgage contingency, but we had a feeling that based on our price, which was aggressive, that we might not appraise, and we agreed to make up the difference in the appraisal. So that was something that really separated us from everybody else. On this case, on this property in Roxborough, I'm just talking about 3 offers. Somebody waived inspections. People used escalation clauses, which basically says, hey, we'll beat a competing offer by X amount, not to exceed a certain number. Some listing agents and sellers don't like them. I don't understand why that is. I think it's a smart move for a buyer to do it. But you really, and what tends to happen usually, I think, on the buyer side is sometimes you might have to strike out once or twice or even 3 times. And that may be because you're just not ready to cede all those terms and not have an inspection and all those things. But you lose out once or twice and you realize, you know what, if I want to actually buy a house and make this work, fine. In the case in point where for the woman who bought the condo, and I'm bouncing around a little bit, she went probably a little higher than she needed to in terms of price. But my main question to her was, Dawn, how long do you anticipate being in this house? She's like, the only other house I'm going to be in is 6 feet under. And I said, all right, well, you pay an extra 10 grand because you like it, and you're going to get it, and you're not going to worry about it. You're going to live there for the next 30 years or whatever. Those things happen. So how all this connects to the current marketplace, which we're always going to try and bring it back to where we are today, is in the suburbs. If you're a buyer, it's very challenging. If you're a seller, you're in a really good position, right? You're going to be navigating those multiple offers that I just talked about. If you're a buyer in suburbs, you're going to probably have to get aggressive, like I said. In the city, it's different. It either sells very quickly or it sits on the market. So you have you have some options, right? The hard part is in the city is it going to be one of these houses that sells very quickly and we have to get aggressive, or do we have some time to actually think about it? I was supposed to take a buyer out yesterday afternoon. She had to cancel, and we were going through the list of places we're going to see when we get together this week, and one of those places was under contract already. And she said, "Wow, that was fast." And I said, "Yeah, that's the market we're in. It's either very quick and it happens very quickly, or it's going to lag, and there's probably going to see some price reductions." So a little bit of conversation about how you approach multiple offers on the seller side, how you do it on the buyer side, and then tying it back into where we are in our current marketplace. I have a saying, and I usually say it to buyers, but I'll say it to sellers as well. The scales tip exponentially in the seller's favor in a multiple offer situation. And it usually happens when people are debating whether they should put an offer in, not necessarily a multiple offer situation, but they're deciding. I usually tell people, you're better off as a buyer putting an offer in low and starting the negotiation, as opposed to waiting for a reduction and then now you're in a multiple offer situation because somebody else is attracted to that offer at the new price. So to sum it up, if you are a seller, it's a really good position to be in. Sometimes it happens too quickly. My case in point in my Roxborough house I was just talking about, I had to kind of condition them to say, like, hey, we have 3 offers. We're not going to sit on this until midweek. We're going to make a decision, and if they're good and where you want to be, then you should, we should sign one of these. So sometimes as a seller, you need to be prepared that, hey, it's happening. We're going to sell the house. Because sometimes that does come up. People it all happens so quickly. On the buyer side, I think you have to just plot your plan, stay the course, and I don't like the saying, if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be, because that's not always true. And I think people try to rationalize that in their heads, and that's not the case. And I also tell people that hope is not a strategy either. So, I hope they'll accept our offer. Well, you're the lowest offer. 9 times out of 10, it's all about the highest dollar amount. So, get with the program here. If you're actually going to do it, step up to the table and do it, understanding that, hey, that may take 1, 2, or 3 strikes before you actually make it work. So, that's it. That's the market we're in. It'll probably continue like that as inventory levels are still low. And honestly, rates have dropped a little bit, so maybe that brings some more buyers out there. But that's multiple offers in a nutshell. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, please subscribe. You can find me on other platforms. Slide into my DMs, shoot me an email, find me online. Very easy. Brian Capone